888-957-9570 is the number. The NFL draft is tomorrow. Steiny, the hold is they are trying to decide whether or not to trade Deebo Samuel. Maybe they're looking to
We hadn't heard that.
move either guy. Like the one thing I was talking about early, and I get it flies in the face of, well, why would you do that a year early if you had to do it? But is there anybody else as fixated on this as I am? Maybe that's the way I'll put it, because I'm way more fixated on this than everybody else. And that is, don't you want to see what the kind of team Brock Purdy's going to end up quarterbacking? Don't you want to see that, how he performs on that kind of team before you make a decision on paying him?
See, Steiny, I get you. I don't.
Okay.
I just, if I could avoid that, because at the end of the day, because I feel like they got a pretty good indication of what Brock Purdy is, but why? I'm trying to win it all.
Right, okay.
And if we can be greater in different locales, I want that.
Let me give you two scenarios. They go into this year, okay, and Brandon Aiyuk's on the team, and they come up short again.
All right.
Okay? And now it's time to pay Brock, but I don't know, they go to the NFC title game. Now it's time to pay Brock Purdy. They pay him, but they got to lose a guy. And then the following year, you realize, well, geez, Purdy's not the quarterback we thought he was with fewer weapons. In other words, he got the quarterback 2 or 3 years with McCaffrey, Deebo, Aiyuk, Kittle, Trent Williams. Well, now Trent Williams is retired. We have one less, let's say, weapon. And guess what? We might have paid him too much. So if the 49ers...
Like, what if I told you that's naturally going to happen, though, Steiny? Regardless if Aiyuk stays or goes, they're going to have the mic.
Right, after you pay him. Like, they may, like, this
or
would
even
give them...
this year, though. Even with Aiyuk out there, doesn't, to me, makes his job easier, you would think. But, Steiny, these dudes, this is their livelihood. They know what they're looking for with Brock, to where they're not going to, Steiny was at your disposal, Guru, so you look great.
That's right.
But
that's right.
But
you don't think that comes into the equation?
It does, but it doesn't supersede it to where it'll be murky if Aiyuk is still on the team, to where you don't really know what you got.
I'm not saying that's the reason you do it, but an offshoot of it is, if you know you got to come off Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel at the end of next year. You just know it. Okay? This year is a great wide receiver class. Okay. Maybe you move Aiyuk, you draft a wide receiver, and then this year you get to assess this team like you'll probably assess the team a year from now, because it won't have drastically different personnel. In other words, what does it mean if Purdy quarterbacks with, all the weapons one year, then he gets all the weapons again, and now you got to pay him and not have as many weapons? Like, you better
you're also without their services of Aiyuk.
Right, but you've replaced him with a young receiver who is going to be somebody that's under cost control. Like, you can't, what I'm saying is, how long is Brock Purdy? The minute he gets $35 million, he's not going to have an $18 million running back, a $24 million Deebo Samuel, a $24 million Brandon Aiyuk, and a whatever George Kittle. Like, the minute he gets paid, their weapons are going to become more limited, because they won't be able to pay those guys that much money.
I totally agree.
And I'll tell you what, I'd like to get a little indication of how Purdy can quarterback a more traditional type of team with, let's just say, one wide receiver, one running back, and one tight end, not a guy who's a jack of all trades and who we're not going to be able to afford under normal circumstances.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just going Bob Myers. Steiny, you don't have to do something until you have to do it. And right now, they don't have to give Aiyuk a new deal. We're saying he might hold out if he doesn't get one. We're saying they don't want to pay him or they think he's replaceable. We don't know that, but we'll find out tomorrow.
But there's a circumstances involved that may be making the 49ers more interested in moving Aiyuk, and that is it's a great wide receiver draft, apparently, according to like Mike Yam. So like that may be something when they put it all into the equation. Of course they'd rather have Aiyuk than a rookie wide receiver. But if Brandon Aiyuk can't get to the number that the 49ers want to get him at, then at that point, I think it makes total sense to draft a wide receiver in a really strong draft and go from, close to paying a guy $25 million year after next to somebody who's under his rookie deal.
Yeah. And I guess it just boils. Kyle's calling the plays, and he's the head coach, Steiny, but it does boil down to, at the end of the day, just how valuable Kyle Shanahan thinks one Brandon Aiyuk is.
Well, yeah, and he's also got to measure, like, if they move Brandon Aiyuk, I got to believe they've just created a lot more flexibility in terms of the salary cap than they would if they obviously paid him a big boy contract. And maybe there's a big value on that inside the organization of getting the financials under control now as opposed to down the line.
Yeah.
888-957-9570 is the number. Let's go to Austin. Austin's in San Jose. What's up, Austin? How you doing?
Hey, fellas. Good conversation, and the draft is exciting for me. I'm a non-North Niner fan. You guys know where my fandom lies.
Yeah, you made a lot of moves there. Yeah.
Well, we got number two. We got number 2 tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. But listen. The Aiyuk thing, man. It's not a question of whether Aiyuk is good. Everybody knows he's good. Whether he's top 5, top 10, that really isn't the issue. The issue is about money. What do the 49ers perceive that they can get him for versus what his agents want? I mean, that's just the way negotiations work. So that they're not going to give him what he wants. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It's the negotiation, right? I think they should be trying to move. I think they're trying to move Debo, and I said this a year ago, Guru. You didn't like it, but I thought Debo should have been traded early. When they brought in McCaffrey, there's a lot of redundancy between what McCaffrey does and what Debo does. So Debo is not a great route runner. If we agree that Aiyuk is a better route runner, then why would you keep Debo over Aiyuk? That's kind of my thoughts. And the last thing I would say, guys, remember, Guru and Steiny, we came within a play or two in the playoffs of this whole conversation around Brock. Everybody loves Brock, but if Detroit had won that game, you best believe the phone would have been ringing to get another quarterback, and they might have been ringing Cousins if they had lost in the playoffs. So let's not get too far down the Brock Purdy parade. I think there's another year to evaluate that dude, man. If I'm not giving him $35 million just based on what I've seen so far. I'd have to see another year. I'm agreeing with Steiny on that.
And I'll say this before you go. It could have been the week before. I know you cited the Detroit game, but that Green Bay game was in limbo for a little bit too. So he didn't have his best game there. So I hear you, but I agree with him, Steiny. I think we talked about it. If I had to choose between Debo and Aiyuk, I would keep the services of Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, it depends.
Now, 2 years ago, I was right. I was like, nah, but there was no McCaffrey. McCaffrey changed it all, and they are redundant.
So who's more explosive, Aiyuk or Debo? I'm not saying that's the only thing.
Yeah. Well, I would say Debo.
I mean, to me, it's
well, if I'm throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage or I'm doing a jet sweep, it's Debo. But if you're saying who's more explosive on 3rd and 15, and I need you to beat your man and get off the line of scrimmage and beat press man, I'm going Aiyuk all day.
Yeah, I'm going Debo all day. I think Debo's like the hardest guy in the NFL to tackle. But Ayuk's more of a traditional wide receiver.
And here we go, Steiny, and you might say this is not fair. Debo missed a whole damn near playoff game. Against the Packers, he was unavailable. I mean, he started, got hurt, and missed the second half. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah, and Brandon Aiyuk's missed some playoff games too.
Yeah. Which one?
Well,
stop.
I mean, he's.
If you don't stop, where was Kittle? I mean, Kittle didn't do anything in the Super Bowl.
All of them?
I'm not blaming Kittle. Maybe this is at the doorstep of
Look at
Kyle Shanahan. Get 11 the ball more.
The bottom line
but you got to block, right? So they're going to address that tomorrow night in Detroit.
I mean, the bottom line also is if you're going to the playoffs every single year and you're going deep into the playoffs every single year, you know what? It matters more what you do in the postseason. And
what you mean?
Ayuk hasn't had good postseasons.
Well, nobody. Steiny, look at McCaffrey's number. I mean, come on. It wasn't. Their offense as a whole did not pop.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not putting that in one.
He must take his responsibility for that.
Well, something else I was going to throw at you, and I knew you was going to.
I mean, like this is the thing. This offense so dynamic. It's like Montana
it was a shocker. It was a shocker.
Okay. Well,
this is where I was going. Okay, so tell me, you and Evan, tell me how fair this is and the listeners. So you're telling me the offensive line is the weak part of your football team, but it's good enough to get you to the Super Bowl. I'm not taking it off the hook on why they missed some assignments against Kansas City, and that went a long way as to why they didn't win. But okay, the offensive line is good enough to get you to the Super Bowl, but it can't win you the ball, Steiny?
Well,
no, I think that's being blindsided. There's multiple reasons on why you didn't win the Super Bowl.
Of course.
Not just the offensive line.
No kidding. Well, who would ever think it's one thing?
Well, it sounds like all they need is offensive linemen. We won't miss Debo. We won't miss Ayuk or what have you if you trade him. I'm just saying be careful.
According to David Lombardi of The Athletic, the position group that performed the worst last year was the offensive line.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what he's saying, and I've been asking 49er fans this all day, well, if that's the case, he believes there's a way you trade Ayuk, means you downgrade at wide receiver to a certain degree, but you upgrade the offensive line. And here's the thing that everybody forgets. It might make the team better. The overall team of the San Francisco 49ers better. Like, you take a step back at receiver, but your offensive line takes a big step forward, which allows Purdy to be even better. And
throwing to somebody, even though it ain't Ayuk.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'm not
saying that sounds crazy, and it could very well be their reality tomorrow night.
Yeah.